Hi guys, and today we start the first chapter, Colonization, Colonialism, Coloniality and Decoloniality, Language Matters. This is the name of the chapter, and be ready, be prepared and focused, and be ready to concentrate a lot because these aren't concepts or terminologies that we ever hear anywhere else, or we don't discuss these things with our friends or nor with our parents, nor do we hear these topics discussed in the media. So a lot of these terminologies and concepts you'll be hearing for the first time. So these are very fun and interesting and fascinating topics, but it's just that we'll be experiencing these for the first time. That's what I had to do. I had to reread a lot of the parts because I was so fascinated and I was really like, what did he just write? And that might be your reaction as well while hearing. So feel free to rewind countless times until you fully grasp the concept. And if you do that, then this book will be a weapon in your hands, an intellectual weapon. So as for the name of the chapter, that is very fascinating itself. Colonization, colonialism, coloniality, decoloniality. So colonization is the process of the colonizers coming and living here. Colonialism is the idea that their ideas have entered and their ways of life, their ways of laws and legal infrastructure, educational infrastructures have lived on among us. Coloniality is that colonialism, but that has happened in the mind. And decoloniality is what Sai Deepak is trying to do. He's trying to decolonize our minds. That is called decoloniality. In July 2018, the arguments I submitted on behalf of the female devotees of Swami Ayyappa before a constitution bench of the Supreme Court supporting the religious practice of the Sabrimala Ayyappa temple were widely reported by the national media. Based on the tone and tenor of the reportage, it seemed to me that the reason the arguments received nationwide traction was due to my emphasis on the fundamental rights of the deity as 1. A person within the meaning of Article 25(1) of the Constitution and the very fount of the religious practices observed by and in the Sabrimala temple, which lent the temple a denominational/sampradayic character within the dharmic fold under Article 26. In my view, I presented a fairly clear, reasonable and constitutionally rooted argument in support of the temple's practice, especially on the rights of the deity, which was the product of the creative and untiring efforts of a dedicated team that blended the religious with the constitutional. Till date, I stand by my legal submissions and see no reason to change my position whatsoever. I say this from a position of clarity and conviction, especially in light of the subsequent endorsement of the juristic character of a deity by a constitution bench of the Supreme Court in the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi verdict delivered on 9th November 2019. Not surprisingly, given the breathless nature of the news cycle and the terminal decline of facts and nuance in public discourse, very few media outlets made an honest attempt to understand or unbundle that multi-layered argument. Instead, sensationalism defined the headlines as well as the contents of news reports with few honorable exceptions. Public reactions to the arguments too were mostly in the extreme with almost no room for a middle ground, which perhaps says a lot about the times we live in than my own arguments. The more predictable jibes like patriarchal and the like did not pique my attention much given the nature of the matter and the dramatis personae involved, apart from the sloganeering hue such words have acquired over the years instead of standing for the genuine concerns and issues they were meant to represent in the first place. So he is hinting at the decline of the importance of the word called patriarchy. It could have fought against genuine chauvinism and evil actions of men, but it's now a complete joke. What I found most interesting was that those who disagreed with me used words such as orthodox, traditional, anti-rational and anti-modern to caricature my position. To be clear, I was intrigued not by the criticism itself, which was expected, but by the use of such words as pejoratives to criticize a position that supported a religious institution. After all, I asked myself, was not a religious institution's commitment first and foremost to the objects of its establishment, and in the case of a temple to the object of its consecration and worship, namely the deity, and the associated practices and traditions? If yes, why was traditional being hurled as a pejorative if adherence to tradition was hardly surprising, given the religious nature of the institution? Did that mean that the word had acquired a secondary significance that needed to be unpacked and understood better? During the course of several public debates after my arguments, I attempted to pull this particular thread based on my intuitive understanding of the colonial assumptions underlying the use of such words as pejoratives. In fact, in a public debate on the topic, a tug of war between constitution and faith, held at the Chennai International Center on September 7, 2018, I specifically spoke of the need to remove the colonial lens while trying to assess and evaluate the constitutionality of indigenous and Indic religious practices, such as the one followed by the Sabrimala temple. That said, it was only after I started reading the literature on coloniality and colonial consciousness that I understood the root cause better from the standpoint of an articulable and articulated framework which underscored the relationship between coloniality, modernity, and rationality. For the first time, I understood based on the literature on the subject that terms such as modern and rational, which we use casually and dare I say unthinkingly in our daily conversations about the contemporary relevance of Indic social and religious practices as well as in relation to the societal structures of Bharat, had deeper meanings that could be traced to their European colonial origins. The judgment and sanctimony inherent in the use of such terms became apparent to me after my exposure to coloniality. But then, what exactly is coloniality? And how is it different from or related to colonialism and colonization? What is the specific historical context in which these terms must be located, and is their use limited by and to such context?